Hey everybody, glad to be learning with you today as we begin to explore three different types of forgetfulness that are presented in the first Mishna of Perek Zion in Masachet Shabbat. Our goals today are to begin to apply the concept of shogeg that we first studied in the introduction to the 7th chapter. Shogeg refers to any accidental violation of the laws of Shabbat. And after we do that, we'll have a chance to define the terms av and tolda and explore the relationship between the two. That relationship is critical, and it occurs throughout the entire Masachet. If a person ever does violate the laws of Shabbat, we hope that the violation occurred b'shogeg, accidentally, because if it were b'mezid, if you sinned intentionally, as you can see from the chart in front of you, the consequences are quite severe. So chances are, if you violated these laws b'shogeg accidentally, they were of a deoraita nature. They had the weight of Torah law. And the consequence for that, as you can see from the chart, is to bring a korban chatat, a sin offering. If you were lucky and the nature of the sin that you violated was only derabanan, then there's no penalty and there's no korban whatsoever. But what does it mean, accidentally violating the laws of Shabbat? What does shogeg look like in practice? So here the Mishnah presents us with three possibilities. The first is that a person has no idea that there is something called Shabbat. For whatever the reason, and the Gemara will explain why, a person never knew that there was a mitzvah called Shabbat, and that each week, starting sundown on Friday until 3 stars on Saturday, a person may not partake in any creative activities. Those activities are forbidden. So here, if a person does violate a law of Shabbat and has no knowledge that there is even a mitzvah of Shabbat, then that could be an accidental violation. Another possibility is that a person knows about Shabbat. He went to day school, or she grew up in a home where Shabbat was observed every single week. The problem was you got your days mixed up, and here you think it's Friday when really it's Saturday. And you're going about your merry way doing all kinds of creative labors that you think are permitted when in fact they are not, because it's really Shabbat. Third possibility is that you have your days straight, you know it's Saturday, and you know that there is a concept called Shabbat and that you're supposed to avoid creative activities. The problem is that you didn't realize that this particular action that you're doing happens to be one of those forbidden activities. And so you think it's allowed when really it's not. These are three different possibilities that the Mishnah presents as to what shogeg looks like in practice. Now the Mishnah here describes each of these situations, and it's helpful if, while we study them quickly, that you read along from your Mishnah to get a better feel for what the Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah begins, Kol hashocheach ikar Shabbat. If a person has no idea that there is something called Shabbat, he has no idea of its very existence. V'asa melachot harbe b'shabbatot harbe, and each and every week, come Saturday, does these restricted activities that are not allowed, eino chayav ela chatat achat. He is only required to offer one korban chatat, and we'll explore the reason for why that is when we study together in class. The second situation that the Mishnah presents is someone who knows about Shabbat, hayodea ikar Shabbat, as the Mishnah says, va'asa malachot harbe b'shabbatot harbe, but goes about doing lots of different types of malachot over the course of a Shabbat, because he thinks that it's really a Friday. He has his days all mixed up. Chayav al kol Shabbat v'Shabbat. He or she is only required to bring one korban chatat for each Shabbat when this occurred. And again, we'll explore the reason for why this is when we study in class. And finally, the third case the Mishnah presents is about someone who has his or her days straight, knows it's Saturday, knows there's something called Shabbat, as the Mishnah says, hayodea shehi Shabbat. He or she knows it's Saturday and there's a mitzvah of Shabbat. Va'asa malachot harbe b'shabbatot harbe, and avoids, to the best of his or her ability, all of the activities that are forbidden, but doesn't realize that one of the activities that he or she is doing is actually forbidden. Chayav al kol malacha umalacha. This person is required to offer a korban chatat for each of the primary activities that are violated. Now, what do I mean by primary? Well, this will bring us to the second part of our lesson today, which is the difference between an av and a tolda. An av refers to a primary labor that belongs to the 39 restricted activities that are forbidden on Shabbat, the things we call the 39 melachot, or the 39 avot melachot. But as you can see from this diagram, each Av is really comprised of a primary labor and secondary labors, other activities that are not exactly the same as the Av, but are close enough that they too are not allowed to be performed on Shabbat. Now, every Av can have multiple toladot. The diagram shows you here one tolda for every Av, but in fact, there could be numerous toldot that are associated with every Av, and we'll have a chance to explore those starting with the second Mishnah in Perek Zayin. So today we had a chance to explore what shogeg looks like in practice and to define the term Av and tolda and to describe that relationship between them. That relationship is very important, and we'll start to explore it in a little more detail when we return to class. Great learning with you. Looking forward to doing more with you when we return.